Hi, boys and girls. I'm Bob Weide, and this is Trailers from Hell. I'm here to talk about Woody Allen's breakthrough comic masterpiece, Annie Hall. If you weren't around in 1977 when Annie Hall was released, it might be hard to understand just how heralded this film was. I know the phrase game changer is overused these days, but Annie Hall was certainly that. I was lucky enough to be at the American premiere of Annie Hall, which was the closing event for Filmex here in LA in 1977. And I can tell you, nothing prepared the audience for what they saw that night. Everything from top to bottom got huge laughs. In fact, the now iconic Marshall McLuhan scene probably prompted one of the biggest laughs I've ever heard in a cinema anywhere. Anyway, when the lights came up, the audience, myself included, walked up the aisle somewhat dazed. I think we all realized that we'd never see Woody Allen in quite the same way again, and we suspected that romantic comedy would never be the same, but I don't know if we understood that film comedy in general, and maybe even film itself, would never be quite the same. Least you think I'm exaggerating. Annie Hall, a comedy, swept the Academy Awards that year. Best Picture, Star Wars and Close Encounters. Best Original Screenplay for Woody and co-writer Marshall Brickman. Best Director, Lucas and Spielberg. And Best Actress for Diane Keaton. And by the way, not long ago, the Writers Guild of America assembled a list of the top 100 comedy screenplays of all time. Annie Hall came in number 1. I don't have time to cite examples now, but Annie Hall's influence is everywhere. I know very few people working in comedy who don't cite it as a major benchmark film in their lives. In fact, I've often said that every contemporary comedy filmmaker is still trying to make Annie Hall, except for Woody Allen. He kind of thinks the film is overrated. Anyway, here's the trailer.
A relationship, I think, is like a shark. It has to constantly move forward or it dies. And I think what we got on our hands is a dead shark.
After about an 8-year run of his so-called earlier funny films, Woody Allen was itching to tell a realistic story about real people whom you could actually care about, even if it meant sacrificing some of the laughs. It was a bold move at the time, but it paid off in spades, and ironically, it's still one of his funniest movies. It wasn't intended as a relationship picture per se. Originally it was called anhedonia, which means an inability to experience pleasure, and the shooting script was sort of a stream of consciousness story. The relationship between Alvy Singer and Annie Hall was just one of several elements in play, but Woody and his genius editor, Ralph Rosenblum, discovered that the audience's attention wavered in scenes that didn't focus on the love story, so as other scenes got whittled away, Annie Hall was shaped into one of the great romantic comedies in modern cinema. Annie Hall caused the world to fall in love with Diane Keaton, including me, but there are also memorable performances by Tony Roberts, who's another member of Woody's stock company, Carol Kane, Colleen Dewhurst, Janet Margolin, Paul Simon, and a very young but already weird Christopher Walken. There's also a one-line cameo by a young Jeff Goldblum who forgot his mantra, which was another huge laugh that premiere night. Of course, Woody loved the films of Ingmar Bergman, and because Bergman didn't score his films, there's no score to Annie Hall. But Diane Keaton sings 2 songs in a nightclub, It Had to Be You and Seems Like Old Times, both very charming. And I should mention the beautiful cinematography of the late, great Gordon Willis. This marks the first of many collaborations between Willis and Allen, and this is the beginning of those scenes where Woody will shoot an entire scene in one master take without any cutting. That was really Willis's influence. But much of the success and charm of Annie Hall is really due to the natural performances and the realistic dialogue that just doesn't sound scripted at all. It's so relatable. You'll recognize so many moments from your own relationships in Annie Hall. Rather than wrap it all up in a neat, happy bow, Woody gives us a melancholy ending that will resonate decades after you first see the picture. Why? Probably because we need the eggs.